Hi, my name is Mark, and as you were probably able to see by the title and or thumbnail of this video, yes, Ozzy doesn't suck at singing. And those who follow my channel know that I usually do guitar lessons or music related lessons and composing and songwriting stuff, so why am I talking about singing? Don't worry, because it will end up making sense. Many of us metalheads and or guitar players are probably really into Black Sabbath. I mean, they're some of the grandfathers of metal, and that's something that not everybody can say they've accomplished. But when we usually talk about Black Sabbath, even though Tommy Iommi wrote some iconic riffs, and Geezer Butler definitely has some amazing bass lines and bass solos up his sleeves, when we talk about Ozzy, Ozzy is that sort of a guy that we go like, oh yeah, he's a good singer. But is he really? I mean, don't take me wrong, but in the context of music that's so amazing as some of those Black Sabbath albums, Ozzys Voice is just kind of underwhelming compared to the rest of the guys. And way back in the day, I was actually one of those guys. I used to say to my friends, well, Black Sabbath is cool and all, but why did they get Ozzy? Wasn't there a better singer or something? I mean, there was this period when they had Dio, and even though it wasn't exactly the same thing, Dio was definitely a much better singer than Ozzy. And now, probably like, I don't know, 5 years after me saying those sorts of things, even though I still think that Ronnie James Dio was a better singer than Ozzy, definitely a better singer than Ozzy. Even though Ozzy is not really a proficient singer, nor has the greatest tone, nor the better dictation or something like it, Ozzy Osbourne is definitely much more underrated than you think. Let's take a song like War Pigs, for instance. I'll try to play Ozzy's part on my guitar. I hope you don't mind some mistakes. I haven't got my hands properly warmed up yet, but anyway, that's not really important right now. For those who know a little bit about guitar and on music theory, you probably noticed that even though it's a pretty simple melody and that it repeats a couple of times, those of you who know music theory or have watched some of my other videos may have noticed that it is much more special than you may think. Ozzy is sort of doing that bluesy parallel modulation sort of a thing when he is playing this melody. And don't worry if you're not really sure about what I'm talking about, I'll explain it to you. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. As you're probably aware, YouTube acts a little bit weird. Even if you subscribe to a channel, the channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to see into my videos, not only do I suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming for backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, but in general, let Mark guitar, and since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and share this video on social media, I'd highly appreciate it. But getting back to the video itself, as I mentioned before, Ozzy does this parallel modulation sort of thing, which even though saying a parallel modulation sounds like a fancy thing, it's not really. The song War Pigs is mostly in E minor. Again, there are some odd chord tones here and there, like in that riff. That flat 9 right there is definitely a little bit spicy for E minor. But when it's used effectively, like in this song, it definitely adds some extra vibe and mojo there. But again, that's not a topic for this video. In fact, I actually talked about it before. You can check it out in the card section right there if you wanted to. But as I mentioned before, for a song in E minor, you would expect the melody to be in E minor, right? But in the case of Ozzy's melody, like I mentioned before, it's not completely in E minor. He does this slight parallel modulation. Even though parallel modulation sounds like a fancy term that could be more easily explained, well, kind of. Again, if you're playing it in E minor, doing a parallel modulation is when you go for an E major. If you were playing a song in E minor, like... if I wanted to do a parallel modulation, I would just need to move from E minor to E major. In this case, it's a little bit too obvious, when we move from E minor to E major, but still I think you get the point. And as I mentioned before, Ozzy is doing this parallel modulation, because he starts out with his melody going, and in this melody he's hitting the notes E, G sharp, A, and B, and then for the last two notes he goes for a D and another E. And if you were to play an E minor chord, the E minor chord has the notes E, B, and G. But if we're playing a G sharp, then we're not playing an E minor anymore. But if we take that G and substitute it for a G sharp, we have an E major. So he's outlining an E major chord over a song that's in E minor. That sounds strange, right? And if we'll take a look at the next part, the next part is minor now. He just uses his minor pentatonic. It's pretty much the exact same notes, just going down instead of up. And instead of him landing on that G sharp, he lands on that G, outlining sort of that E minor tonality. And some of you will be thinking, well, but that's a little bit strange, isn't it? If the song is in E minor, why is he outlining an E major chord? Well, in the case of this particular song, it's a little bit easy to outline that sort of major sound, because in this part of the verse, Ozzys Voice is acting like a solo instrument. When they do that little riff of everything stops and then Ozzy stays by himself, right? So he can pretty much play wherever he wanted to. He could even play. It would of course sound odd because I just played some random notes, but again, depending on how he would sing it, it may have worked. And I'm not saying that Ozzy is special for doing this sort of modulations sort of a thing, and that's something that's quite contemporary for the singers of his time, and I'll explain later why. But my point about Ozzy being a bad singer comes down to, well, but would a bad singer automatically do these sorts of modulation thingies? I don't know, maybe yes, maybe not, you tell me what you guys think. But anyways, as I said before, it's not like this is an uncommon thing to do, but it's definitely something that's cool to do. If you're into blues, you may have heard something like in a very blues fashion. In that lick, I pretty much danced around E major and E minor. And in Ozzy's lick, I especially leaning into that E dominant sound, which is just an E sound, but having a dominant seventh. In this case, we're in E, the dominant seventh would be D. It's very much that bluesy country-ish sound. And even though, like I mentioned before, in the entirety of the lick, I very much dance around E minor and E major using that dominant sound. Again, I've done videos before where I explained this sort of a thing, you can check it out right there. And like I mentioned before, that sort of sound was something that was definitely present around blues, rock, and not just in guitar, but also in vocal lines and piano lines, stuff like that, because even though we're playing different instruments, we're mostly trying to achieve the same sound. And Ozzy is definitely not an exception. Blues was definitely popular around the time Black Sabbath came around, so him doing this sort of a thing, so for those of you saying that Ozzy is not that great of a singer, well, maybe he's not the most proficient singer, but he definitely plays some interesting stuff. And again, you can learn from Ozzy and say, okay, next time I have a chord progression like, I don't know, let's say something like in B. That chord progression isn't exactly in major nor minor. One, we're just playing power chords, we're just playing B power chord. Sometimes I do this little A thingy, like a pickup note, but still it's a B. Then I move to an E power chord. If there's not a melody or anything else playing along with it, if we're just playing these power chords, because we don't have thirds, we don't really know if we're playing over a B major and E major, or if we're playing over something like, I don't know, a B minor and an E minor, or even a B minor and an E major, or even a B major and E minor, we don't really know. And that's actually sort of fun, because just like Ozzy, when we play this part, it's just a D to E, and it's in power chords. We don't really have thirds. Are we in major or in minor? Well, even though the rest of the song is in minor, because we don't really know if we're playing over major or minor chords, we don't really need to play our melody in minor, and we can pretty much choose whichever ones we wanted to. Again, we could play, for instance, something major for the B sound, and then go to the E chord and do something major as well. Or we could even play something minor on the B, then go major to the E and do something fun like that. Or we could even be a little bit more spicy and do like a B major and E minor. Again, the sky's the limit for this sort of thing, and you don't necessarily need to say, okay, because I'm playing over this chord progression, I'm just going to use this tonality for the B chord and then that tonality for the E chord. You can mix them up however you want to. Again, it was a little bit poorly played at the end. Like I mentioned before, my hands aren't really warmed up yet, but you get the point, right? This sort of chord progression, because we think that they are simpler chord progressions, we can actually do some more interesting stuff around it, because, well, we don't really have to worry, oh, that's a B minor chord, so we have to play notes of the B minor chord, and all the other notes are just spicy notes. No, because we're playing over power chords. If we want to go major, we can, and if we want to go minor, there's nothing that stops us really. And taking this back to the point I made in the beginning of this video, again, it's a little bit clickbaity, but if I didn't really do it, would you actually click on the video? I don't really think so. Even though Ozzy is most definitely not thinking, oh, I'm playing over something that's neither major nor minor, so I can probably do some parallel modulations here and there and do some major stuff and then some minor stuff, then add that dominant 7 in to do some of that more jazzy bluesy stuff. Again, I think we're all probably really sure that Ozzy's not thinking about that theoretically. They were probably just using their ears. And again, that's really important, but knowing that if you have a power chord progression, you can choose whichever tonality you want to, because you're not really restricted. It's not going to get you stuck to the rules. In fact, we're saying screw the rules, you make up your own rules. The only thing you gotta be careful of, and that's what I usually say in these sorts of videos, is just because you know a theoretical concept, like in this case, because we don't really have a third for these power chords, you can choose if you want the major third or the minor third. You shouldn't just choose one of them or both of them or wherever because a guy on YouTube told you to. You should do it because you think it sounds cool or you're audiating it or something like it. And I think that's the point of these sorts of lessons really, but whatever. So yeah, summing it up, next time you hear somebody saying, oh, Ozzy wasn't really a great singer, you can tell them, well, yes, Ozzy probably wasn't the most versatile singer or the most virtuoso of singers, but he definitely has some interesting ideas, and he definitely didn't just stick to one sound. And when it comes to your guitar playing, soloing, improvising, or something like it, that's definitely something you can do. Again, take his concept of we're playing over power chords and choose which tonality you want to, independently of if the rest of the song is in major or minor. You can mix it up like I suggested before and get some interesting spicier sounds. But yeah, I guess that's it. Again, tell me in the comment section below if you guys like this video, if you agree, if you do not agree, if there was something I missed, something I should have said. Again, the comment section is all yours. And if you actually have any suggestions for videos, I have this dedicated series called Yate, You Ask I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, but as you can probably guess, and as the name implies, in that series I pretty much teach anything you guys have in the comment section below. Well, at least guitar and our music related, of course. So if there's something you want me to talk about, just leave it in the comment section below with the hashtag Yate. And since we're talking about some of my other videos, again, not only do I talk about soloing and improvising and playing out of the box, but I also do lessons where I explain music theory. I do some other videos where I transcribe a lick that I either think is interesting, or the lick itself is a little bit different than what whoever played the lick usually plays. And I also have this series called Bass Riffs for Guitar because, for those who don't really know, I actually started out as a bass player and gigged around for a couple of years before I eventually moved on to guitar. So when I came to guitar playing, I guess I brought some things from my bass playing that maybe some of you who didn't really start out on bass either don't think about or don't think about consciously. So yeah, I guess it's pretty self-explanatory again. If you didn't really start out on bass, go check those videos out. There's probably something you can learn from them. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I also do some songwriting and composing videos. Again, not only sharing tips and tricks and how to apply chords and do melodies and stuff like that, but I'm also doing this series where I compose a song and show you guys my process. And again, other than lessons, I also do this series called Guitar This Week. It's kind of like a news segment sort of a thing, but instead of me talking about everything that happened during last week, I just talk about things in the guitar/music industry that I either thought were interesting, funny, or discussion worthy. So if you're into that sort of stuff, you could check it out. But again, I want to thank you so very much for watching, and if you can, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on all the notifications. Follow me on social media and share this video on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. Again, I mentioned all of those videos that will be on the card section right there in the annotation section of the end screen, which will be on in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's it. I think I've been probably rambling till now, so let's just end it with this. Cheers!